but many times, we know the industry we're in. Love doing what I'm doing, but we also, like Led told it many a times. I mean, this is the industry we're in. Love coaching. Obviously, that wasn't the result we wanted today. Obviously,
The end of an era. That is what a lot of Falcons fans are saying after today's performance against New Orleans Saints. Welcome back, guys. I know I haven't made a Falcons video for a while. I've been kind of, doing with holidays, everything like that, just trying to enjoy that. I've stayed on my Hawks content because I do that for a podcast network. But, and also I've been aware of everything that's happened with the Falcons recently and all the storylines going into this last week of the season against the Saints and seeing how things closed out, man. It's tough. It's tough, but it should be the end of an era, the Arthur Smith era of this team. Falcons get beat down for the second week in a row, 48-17. That's just not. That's just an ugly performance and one of the ugliest ends to a season in franchise history. A season that was just completely ruined by quarterback play, undisciplined football. We had some injuries, but everybody has injuries. Just inconsistencies across the board on a season where you had one of the easiest schedules, very winnable games, and a division that was right there for the taking. Shout out to Tampa Bay. They won the division for a second straight year, so congrats to them. But just everything that I'm bringing up to you has been the season for the Atlanta Falcons, and this now has turned into this should be the end of Arthur Smith. Now, I know Terry Fontenot has been a big topic of discussion with a lot of people because a lot of people are trying to decide how much blame does he deserve in this situation. And I love to hear from you guys to know how much blame you think Terry deserves. But a lot of people, I do see more people saying that they think Terry should get an opportunity to pick his head coach because if you remember in this previous process, Arthur Smith was hired before Terry Fontenot. So Terry Fontenot did not technically pick his head coach. But like I said, there's going to be some people who will say that, no, they need to completely clean house. So, let me know where you stand on that in the comments down below. But, yeah, I mean, there really is no reason to talk about the game today because, it was ugly. Falcons started off good and then just fell apart. Like I said, has been the story of the season. Sometimes the Falcons will come out and play good football, and then they'll just play god-awful football. And after the first 14 points they scored, it was god-awful football. Only scored 3 points the rest of the way. Defense fell apart down the stretch. For a defense that has had such a resurgence, they had 40 sacks for the first time, I think, since I can't remember the actual year, but they haven't had 40 sacks in I think almost a decade for a season. I think I could be completely wrong, but they had that. You've had Jesse Bates is an all-pro safety, Pro Bowl safety for him. Congratulations to him making the Pro Bowl this year. You had all those things for you, and your defense still struggles down the stretch, and there's questions about the defense. So this video today is going to be really about what is next. The game is just so minuscule now because the season is over. And Arthur Blank has to make a tough decision. He has to decide what he's going to do with his head coach. He put his belief in Desmond Ridder, which did not pay off. Tyler Heineke could not save this season either. The lack of, we couldn't even get I think Bijan only needed 56, 57 yards to get 1,000. Couldn't even do that. Drake, I don't even know if Drake London got his 1,000-yard season. He might have. I haven't checked the numbers. I'm just doing this off pure reaction, guys. Just pure reaction talking to y'all right now. This offense has just been so inconsistent most of this year, and today was just a prime example of that once again. If you look at this roster moving forward, let's start with that. Obviously, biggest thing you need to do offensively on the field is get a quarterback. The question for the Falcons is, what direction do you go in? Do you go in veteran direction or do you do in a rookie direction? That is usually the big key here. Couple of veteran quarterbacks who could be available. Justin Fields has been the big one. He's playing some of his best football down the stretch for Chicago. So maybe that could make Chicago go ahead and keep him for next season. We'll see. They have the first pick in the draft, so they'll have a chance to get Drake May or Caleb Williams, whatever they decide to do. So potentially he's a guy who could be in the running for potential QB1 next year for the Atlanta Falcons. Kyler Murray was taken off the table as the Arizona Cardinals have decided to go ahead and go with Kyler Murray as QB1 again next year. Russell Wilson looking like he'll be in a new place next year. A lot of people connected the Falcons to Russell Wilson when he was benched by the Denver Broncos. Guy who is more of a split in the entire fan base about Russell Wilson just because he's older. And some people think he's washed. If you look at his numbers, it wasn't bad this year, but people think, is he really the right fit for this job? As another possibility. Kirk Cousins is another name that potentially is in his last year with the Minnesota Vikings, coming off an Achilles injury, could be, again, a potential solution for the Falcons to go to. Or you could go rookie quarterback. The Falcons will finish with the 8th pick in the NFL draft this year for the 3rd year in a row, I believe they said. And so for the Falcons in this situation, they have an opportunity right now to be able to get a QB. You may not get Drake May or Caleb Williams unless you're willing to trade up, but you may be able to go and get Jaden Daniels. He's been a very popular name, Heisman Trophy winner from LSU this past year, to potentially be the QB1 for the Falcons next year if they wanted to go the rookie route as well. I know some people have even discussed, do you go with another position player, not wide wide receiver, running back, but maybe a D lineman or an offensive lineman at 8, and then maybe in the second round follow up with Michael Penix potentially, or JJ McCarthy, depending on how you feel about the quarterback class this year and those quarterbacks as well. So that's going to be the biggest question, that whatever new coach comes in for the Falcons, like I said, I'm fully expecting Arthur Smith to be let go, which would be shocking if he is kept. I think that would be the big situation. I think if Arthur Smith would stay, I would think you would go more veteran quarterback. With a new head coach potentially coming in, I think you lean rookie because you want long-term solutions. You don't want short-term solutions. Kirk Cousins is a short-term solution. Russell Wilson is a short-term solution. They're not long-term solutions to your problem. So they have to figure that out. They need to get a QB coach too. Just in general, they just need to get a QB coach. And they need to figure out that position because the Falcons season has shown you, once again, you could have the great talent all you want. You got to have the quarterback, or at least a capable quarterback, to be able to win games in this league. And it showed his head today once again. At running back, you're pretty much set. You're probably going back and running it back. I know Cordell Patterson a week ago kind of mentioned being unhappy with his touches. So this probably is the last year of Cordell Patterson probably. So Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson will be your backs going into the future. Now, I feel like the Falcons, since you can find a running back in those late rounds, don't be surprised if the Falcons get a running back late in this year's draft to get a guy to be the 3rd running back in that running back room to also go with those guys. So I expect maybe that be able to be the biggest change made of that position, but you have 2 running backs that you can lean on. And obviously you'll have to make a decision on Tyler Algier when his contract comes up in a couple of years about how do you feel about him and what he maybe wants to do for himself as a running back in this league. Wide receiver wise, Drake London, I think, has showed he's a stud wide receiver. Biggest thing for the Falcons is just figuring out the rest of the receiving core. One underrated part of this entire regime under Arthur Smith is he's never really had, outside of maybe that first year, and that was when Julio wanted to get traded. So I guess you can't even say the first year, but he really hasn't had the greatest receiving core ever. I mean, they've had Drake that was supposed to replace Calvin. After that, your second wide receiver was Mac Hollins to begin the year, and then I guess was Van Jefferson to end the year. And Van Jefferson has not endeared himself with fans. Fans feel like we need to move on from Van Jefferson. Mac Hollins has annoyed people with him always having no shoes on everywhere he goes. Scotty Miller, he's been very inconsistent. It just feels like that receiving room needs a complete revamp potentially. So that is something I also see the Falcons also making a priority offensively, is getting a wide receiver 2 and 3 this year. Maybe you keep one guy from this year, like a Cordero Hodge. He's been stuck around. He's been a pretty good special teams player, but that's also a place of, needed improvement just to give other receivers besides Drake London there at that position. And then if you're looking at the tight end spot, I know Kyle Pitts has been under a lot of heat this year and everything. I mean, people have questioned, is he healthy? Is he not healthy? Arthur Smith has mentioned at times this year that he's been still working through some things and he's still been trying to figure out some things. I think that is going to be a big question. I think Pitts will be on the roster next year, but I think it'll be a crucial year for Pitts. Pitts is going to be entering that crucial fourth year where he's in a do or die situation. I know people have already mentioned maybe potentially trading him to try to get something else. I don't think that's going to happen. Again, it depends on who we bring in, what the coach thinks, what the coach feels, et cetera, et cetera. People have complained about the way Kyle Pitts has been used, but also people complain about some things like his effort and route running at times. Could it just be that he's not healthy? Could it not be that the offense is not conducive to him? Is he unhappy with Arthur Smith's offense? Is it that, he just isn't happy in Atlanta? We don't know. We'll see as the offseason goes into it what that means for Kyle Pitts. But obviously, if he's here next year, he will continue to still be one of your top receiving weapons. And it gives him another offseason to, if he is still hurt, get healthy. And if he's healthy, then maybe next year we'll see the Kyle Pitts we saw his rookie year when he had 1,000 yards. The rest of the tight end room is open. I mean, Jonnu Smith, what's crazy with him, he actually hasn't been a bad second tight end at all. I think he's been a pretty solid second tight end for us, a guy who can still make big plays from that second tight end spot. I think there are just times that I think Arthur Smith in this offense tried to feed him too much, and I think that in and of itself, I think sometimes you kind of were like, why are we going to Jonnu Smith in these situations when we have Kyle Pitts? And I think, I would not be mad at all if Jonnu Smith was still here next year. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I mean, guys, like I said, every position that I'm listing right now, if you guys want to give your opinions in the comments, go ahead, give your opinion in the comments, and talk about what y'all think about that position right there. But outside of that, then obviously you'll figure out the rest of the tight end group. Offensive line wise, I mean, you're lucky Matthew Bergeron looks like he's hit in the second round. You have a starting left guard potentially for years to come. Drew Dahlman cleaned up some of the snap issues. He's one of the top centers, especially from Pro Football Focus. He's been rated one of the top centers this year in the NFL, so he'll probably be here. And then obviously Chris Lindstrom, the big money guard that you paid last season. Again, also a Pro Bowl guard for you as well this year. So your middle interior offensive line is set. The tackles will be your big question. You would think Jake Matthews will probably still be around another year. He could retire for all we know. We don't know. But we would assume he would be there. I think the biggest upgrade I think people feel like is needed is at the right tackle position in Caleb McGarry. Caleb McGarry has been a guy who I think his rookie year was hurt. Second year was good. Third year was terrible. I could be getting this wrong. What was a year he had a good year, and then he had a terrible year. And then he had a good year, and now he has a terrible year. I don't know how long, I forgot how long this man has been with us. But I think a lot of people are ready for the upgrade over Caleb McGarry, going ahead, getting that new right tackle for the future. So maybe that's another position. Again, draft maybe the top 8 pick. Maybe you go right tackle there. It's not the sexy pick, but solidify that line of scrimmage. If not, maybe you see what you have in free agency this season to potentially go and get you a right tackle to protect on the right side of the offensive line. And then, like I said, you'll see what you do with Jake Matthews for the offense. In general, with the coaching staff, you need obviously just need an offensive coordinator, better play calling, better play concepts, better pass concepts, just better coaching across the board. The offense was very undisciplined, very undercoached. It just seemed like they couldn't execute well, and that to me is a reflection of coaching and things like that. So listen, they've said that Arthur Smith runs a complicated offense. Maybe he does need to run a complicated offense. Sometimes you can overcomplicate things for your players, and maybe that's what happened with this offense this year too, which just was way too complicated and was way too much to think about, and that's why certain players did not do as well as they would think they would do. But at the end of the day, I mean, offensively, you're in decent shape. I mean, you just got to get you a new revamped wide receiver room with Drake London. Get you a QB1 either for the future or for temporarily for the next couple of years with a veteran or a rookie quarterback. And after that, figure out your tackle spots on the offense. Defensively, Ryan Nielsen has done a great job with this team. Listen, I know that his weakness this year has been running quarterbacks. He struggled against them. But for the most part, this team has done a great job improving. Has been one of the best Falcons defenses we've had since, I believe, after the Super Bowl year when they were, I believe they were a top 10 defense that year as well after the Super Bowl. And, Jesse Bates has been a revelation for us. He's been great from a secondary. Because I'm going to start with the secondary. He's been great. The rest of secondary, I think a lot of people have questions. I think a lot of people are wondering about A.J. Terrell. A.J. Terrell is coming up where he's due for a contract. He has struggled to end the year. I think A.J. has been solid for us this year. A.J. is not a guy that you look at and think he's just been a god-awful corner. I just think he has plays where he just gets beat, especially on deep throws. Deep throws have been his weakness this year, and he's struggled. And so some people are wondering, do we pay A.J. Terrell? Well, here's the thing you also got to ask yourself. Going to CB2, you thought maybe Jeff Okudah could be that. He started the season well, but fell off. Clark Phillips emerged. Didn't have a great game against the Saints, but I mentioned on a tweet on my Twitter, Bryce_2K, that Clark Phillips' issue is his size. He's a smaller player. So you play him against bigger receivers can just overpower him. And so that may make him not a favorite to be an outside starting corner. Maybe that's why you prefer him more in the slot. But because I think he's played well. I think he's been in good position. I think he deserves, an opportunity to be able to play next year. But I just think overall, you're going to have to figure out those corners. It makes me feel like you kind of have to keep AJ because unless you're willing to go through a full-scale reset at the cornerback position. Is that something that you want to do? Do you guys think that's something the Falcons should look into, going through a full-scale reset at the cornerback position? Maybe. I don't know. If it's something. And then obviously the other safety position, Richie Grant was a pick that people were excited about, ended up not working out. I mean, he does some good things well. He just isn't the player we thought he would be. And I think that has been a disappointment, especially with a guy you've invested a high draft pick into a second-round pick, a guy who probably won't see a second contract. And you would think maybe won't be in this team next year. Again, we'll have to see what happens with the defensive coaching staff, what their vision is for certain players. Maybe Ryan Nielsen's scheme does not work for Richie Grant. I have no idea. But we'll have to see. So they're going to have to figure out that second safety. DeMarco Helms is going to be definitely in consideration next year for that spot, potentially next to Jesse Bates. It literally just depends on what they want from that safety position opposite Bates. If they can fix that secondary, which was expected to be one of the best secondaries, and honestly, from a passing defensive perspective, was not terrible through a lot of the season. It was just more towards the back end of the season where the defense, especially the secondary, started to kind of let more big plays up, and it was kind of reflected in the play. Linebacker, I think, is a very exciting position for this team next year. You got Troy Anderson coming back next year. He was hurt most of the season. You got Nate Landman, who has played fantastic. I mean, I think he has exceeded people's expectations. He has been great for this team, especially in the run defense. He has been a very physical linebacker and a guy who I think has definitely earned the ability to be a starter for years to come for this team. And then Caden Ellis, he's been great this year as well. Been all over the field, energy just all over the field. He exited to the game with injury. Sucks for him that he couldn't finish out with the guys on the field, but he's been great. Depending on what they do defensively, if Ryan Nielsen stays or if they bring a new defensive coordinator in, it'll be interesting to see what they do with the linebacking core. You may see Troy Anderson, with speed being one of his biggest traits. Some people have discussed maybe making him a third down coverage / third down pass rushing linebacker because that may be something that he could excel at with his athleticism. Or if you go back to a 4-3 next year, he can just be one of your linebackers. And then you put Matt Landman in the middle with Caden and Troy Anderson playing your two outside backers. So that's a position that I'm excited about, and I'm looking very much forward to seeing what they decide to do with that position. So very, very excited to know how that looks and how that turns out with the linebacking core. But that's probably one of the best strengths of this defense going into next year overall. Then if you look at the defensive line, if you look at the interior is set. Grady Jarrett set to return next year. We know what kind of player he is. David Onyemata has become one of the best defensive interior linemen in the league. I mean, those two are going to wreak havoc next year together once again. And then, guys like Kadavius Street, he got traded. People were like, who's this guy? He played really well in his position to come in and fill in for Grady. He's a guy who I could see also remaining next year. London, guys like that have played well in their rotational duty and definitely deserve an opportunity to be on this team next year and be a part of the rotation. We'll see again what the next defensive staff thinks and what the next defensive staff wants to do. Obviously, that can change a lot of things, but everything under the sun. And then also, hold on a second. Let me bring it back real quick to defensive backs. I know people wanted me to talk about this because I haven't. Dee Alford. I know Dee Alford is a guy who played well, randomly got benched for some reason for Mike Hughes. Don't know why. Mike Hughes didn't play awful to end the year, but it didn't really make a lot of sense. I really hope Dee Alford is here next year. I see no reason why Dee Alford should not be on this team next year as a nickel. The thing is that with Clark Phillips and Dee Alford, if they both are going to be your nickel corners next year, I mean, you can rotate them, I guess, but I mean, it's good problem to have depth at that position. So I really hope Dee Alford's on this team next year. I think he deserves it. I think he's done everything he needs to do on his end to be good, and I don't see a reason why he shouldn't be on that. Shouldn't be a part of the team. But going back to the D-line, the biggest thing this Falcons D-line needs on the end is just an elite pass rusher. Arnold Ebiketie has had one of his best seasons since he's came into the league in his second year. He played really well. He's done a good job. Bud Dupree has played well. I think I'd love to bring him back next year as a rotational pass rusher. I think he would be great in that role as like a third, fourth rusher coming in rotation. If you can go get that elite pass rusher this year, that will really take this defense up to the next level, I think, next year. And think there may be more consistency, because sometimes some of the inconsistency for this defense comes from defense can't get a pass rush and then the secondary gets exposed. You get you an elite pass rusher, that could lead to more consistency with the defense. And then if that happens and you get more consistency with the defense, this defense may be even better than what they were this year. Again, it just really depends on what the next, what if Terry's still here, or if they bring in a new GM, what they think about that part of the team. But I think Arnold Ebiketie for sure. Bud Dupree deserves a chance to come back. I let go of Lorenzo Carter. Zach Harrison made a lot of development this year. He didn't play the last game, but I think he deserves a shot at it. It'll be interesting to see what they do with D'Angelo Malone. I'm disappointed that he didn't get any run this year. Some people were wondering if he was trying to make a transition to linebacker, and they took this year as a transition year for him. I don't know. We'll see what the plan is with him. Obviously, with him not playing next year with a new coach coming in, that could not bode well for him, potentially on the bubble because of that, but we'll have to see. And then obviously, which goes special teams. I mean, realistically, Younghoe Koo didn't have the greatest end to the season for him. I know some people are wondering, is Younghoe Koo starting to decline? Personally, I don't see them moving off of Younghoe Koo. They may bring in a kicker to compete with him for sure, but I don't know if this is the end of Younghoe Koo. I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, that's something we're just gonna have to see. But overall, this season has been a lot of emotion. The season has had a lot of things going on. This season has had a lot of disappointment. And I think a lot of people are very interested to know what the next steps are for the Atlanta Falcons. I think everybody is interested to know what Arthur Blank is going to do, what the next step is, and what is going to happen. So I think the expectation is for Arthur Smith to be fired. And we will have that announcement probably tomorrow. It depends on how early. If they do it early enough, guys, I'll be able to come back, get you another video on the firing, and then the next steps from a coaching perspective will focus more on coaching prospects, coaching rumors, things like that. I know maybe people wanted that today. I'm going to wait on that to wait until the official firing happens before having that conversation. But that is the next step. If I am at work when this happens, I will get that video to you guys Tuesday. If it's before, I'll get it to you guys before I go into work tomorrow afternoon. So, we'll keep an eye on that for sure, because I'm sure that's going to be the big thing everybody is looking forward to seeing. And then just knowing the next steps for this franchise and this organization going into the future and figuring out what is next. I just wanted to give a roster breakdown and a little bit of a update on seeing what we think. Like I said, I'd love to hear you guys' opinion on this roster moving forward. I think the Falcons are going to be a top 3 job available, just because this isn't a job that you're coming into and saying, oh my God, we're going to have to suck for a year before we can be good. This is a team where if you make the right additions and the right picks and the right selections, immediately could be a playoff team, a viable playoff team next year. So it's a job that if you're a coach who wants to have maybe quicker success, this may be the job for you. You have some players in place, and now it's just about getting the job done and making it happen for this team and fixing some of the things that have been created here, as this culture has not seen a winning season in years in Atlanta. So hopefully that will all change. But before I let you guys go, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Bryce_2K. And also don't forget to subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed this video talking about Falcons, the Falcons and everything. Give you more Falcons coverage as I can. As we enter the offseason, I will be up to date with firings, signings, tradings, free agency, draft, everything under the sun for you guys. We're going to have interviews from some guys here. Hopefully get my guy Steve Weiss back on here pretty soon. So we're going to have a lot for you guys for Falcons coverage this upcoming off season. So appreciate all the support throughout this entire season for the Atlanta Falcons season. We've all been frustrated and pissed off together. So I guess we got to see, and I'm excited what's to come for this Falcons team going into the future. So that's all I got for you guys. I got to get ready. Couple in about an hour. I got to cover some Hawks. So you'll probably, if you're a Hawks fan watching this, you'll probably see me bring out a video tonight or tomorrow morning as well with that from tonight's game. So appreciate you guys. It's your boy Bryce Lewis. I'll see you next time.